In the 18th century, artists often turned to ancient myths to explore universal themes. Jacques-Louis David made mythological paintings throughout his long career, focusing on stories with couples to explore the psychology of love. Paris and Helen, Sappho and Phaon, Telemachus and Eucharis, Cupid and Psyche, Mars and Venus. David emphasized the actions and expressions he envisioned for these mortals and gods. What do their faces suggest about the nature of love? What do their poses and gestures say? In the story of Telemachus and Eucharis, Telemachus is stranded on the island of Calypso while searching for his father, Ulysses. He falls in love with a nymph, Eucharis, but is bound by duty to continue his journey. In traditional versions of the tale, the lovers were forced to part in front of an audience at a hunt. David illustrated that moment in the story with symbols of the hunt, but instead of a public setting, he showed the lovers in a cave, spending their last moments together alone. Their decision appears clearly voluntary and thus more difficult. Eucharis wraps her arms around Telemachus, hoping that he'll stay. But Telemachus is torn between desire and duty. In David's mythological paintings, erotic love always comes at a price, with power, duty, and destiny changing the course of relationships. Few clues in this portrait suggest who the sitter is, but her gaze invites us to wonder. A decade earlier, at age 11, Suzanne Le Peletier became a public figure at the start of the French Revolution. Her politician father, Louis Michel, had voted for the king's death and was assassinated for it. France symbolically adopted Suzanne as daughter of the state. Jacques-Louis David served as the revolution's chief image maker and orchestrated the funeral through the streets of Paris. David made a drawing and a painting of Louis Michel Le Peletier on his deathbed. Another artist produced this print from David's painting. The painting is now lost. Considered together, David's portraits of father and daughter symbolize the conflicting values of state and family sparked by the revolution. David made the portrait of Louis Michel large for public display. Suzanne's is about 1/3 the size. It was meant for private viewing. In Louis Michel's portrait, the murder weapon dangles above. The martyr's words on a ballot note call for the king's death. The blade points down towards his fatal wound. David portrayed another martyr, Marat, to accompany the painting of Louis Michel. Like Marat, Louis Michel is shown in full figure profile, the way observers saw him at his funeral. He appears less as an individual than as an object for display. By contrast, David's portrait of Suzanne is humanizing. She is dressed elegantly but plainly, and the painting's intimate size underscores her humble appearance. Soon after this portrait was made, Suzanne married a man loyal to the monarchy. She came to share his views and resented her father's reputation as a revolutionary. After David died, Suzanne paid a huge sum to purchase her father's portrait, presumably to keep it from public view. Some scholars think she had the symbolic elements painted over. Most believe she had the painting destroyed. This intimate portrait of two sisters by Jacques-Louis David expresses, through fashion, the history and ideals of an entire nation. Fashion has always been a barometer of cultural change. In 18th century France, the nobility dictated the fabrics, shapes, and colors of clothing to denote social status. Extravagant hats, wigs, dresses, and perfume adorned the body. During the French Revolution, the lower classes expressed their newfound identity through spare, practical clothing. This had a broad influence even on the aristocracy. As a new nation formed, people sought to express themselves both as equals and as individuals. Various trends emerged. Women's clothes literally showcase the figure, fitting close to and revealing the body. Ideals of classical antiquity also inspired clothing. When Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself emperor, he and his wife Josephine ushered in medieval and Renaissance-inspired pageantry. Napoleon's nieces grew up in that era. They were the daughters of the King and Queen of Spain. In David's portrait of them as young women, Zénaïde holds a letter from their father. The sisters are dressed in the latest Parisian fashions. Zénaïde's dress shows off her body. Charlotte's reflects a Renaissance influence. By then, the sisters lived in exile in Belgium, and David deftly portrayed them through fashion as modern women claiming their past.